Okay, today we're going to look at creating actions using Adobe Photoshop. Actions are very important because they allow you to automate things within Adobe Photoshop. You can essentially create macros, which are patterns or procedures of certain things like opening a file and changing its image size, or applying levels, I should say. You can create a whole list of procedures and save them as an action. And if we just have a quick look over here, I've got the actions palette already open on my screen, and you can see there's a whole list of procedures which have been created by default, which do all sorts of things to an image. Now you may see it like this in button mode, depending on how Photoshop is set up on your computer. You can switch between button mode and the manager, as I like to call it, the actions manager, by clicking on this small arrow to the right, top right of the menu, and choosing button mode. If I click off it, there's the manager. If I click on it, there are just buttons here. Now I'm going to switch this off for the time being to start up my first action. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up an image that I prepared earlier, and I'm just going to generate an action which reduces the image size and also forms a few filters, so maybe unsharp mask or something to that effect. I'll just make it up as I go along, as I normally do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by clicking on the Create New Action icon at the bottom of the Actions palette. And if you can't see the Actions palette, click on Window. It should be there in the list there. So if I click on the Create New Action, this dialog box appears. First of all, I create a name for it, so I'm just going to call this My Action for Tutorial. There we go. I can also set a function key for it if I wanted to. I won't in this case. Or a colour. I'll go for orange, I think. Now the second I start recording, clicking on the record button there, the second I start recording, that's when the procedures will start to be added to this action that I've just set up. So if I click on record now, you can see in the actions palette my actions appeared there, my action for tutorial. At the bottom there, the record button is indented and there's a red light in the center which denotes that it's currently recording. Now I think I should change the image size first, so if I just go to image size, if I just change the width, let's say 800. From now on, whenever I use this action, every image that I apply it to, the image size will be reduced to 800 pixels. Now whatever you do, I mean that's just one example, changing the image size. Whatever you do, this will be so. Whenever you create a step within this procedure, within this pattern, within an action, when you play that out onto another image, that will occur within that image. Some things work, some things don't. If I try to use the clone stamp tool now and started doing lots of things, when I come to play that action out, I may get some very unusual effects. So do experiment, be creative. Now, I've changed the image size. You'll notice that in my actions palette down over here, we've got under my action for tutorial, something has appeared. And it's image size. It's recorded that one step that I made. And you can see there, width 800 pixels. So it's recorded that setup. Right, I'm going to go to filter now. I think I might just sharpen up my image with unsharp mask. I'll give it a bit of a contrasty, arty sharpening. And again, there we go. Underneath the My Actions tutorial, we've got unsharp mask, and there you can see the amount 25, radius 98.5, and threshold 0. That's pretty much what I typed in. So it's recorded that. I think next, how about how about I go to levels. and probably slightly over contrast this. Next I'll go to, how about I go to layers palette and I just copy that layer, then I add a bit of Gaussian blur maybe, and then reduce the opacity. I'm just totally making this up as I go along. Story of my life. There we go. I've just added an effect. I could go to layers and flatten image. If I go back to the actions palette, you can see everything I've done, although done quite badly. I didn't quite make my mind up on what opacity I was going to set that to. Everything I've done has now appeared within the actions palette. Right, now I've finished. I think I've done enough there with this particular action. I'm going to stop the recording by clicking on Stop Playing Recording, and that should be that. If I wanted to get rid of any of those procedures, I would simply just click, drag and drop it into the bin icon at the bottom of the palette. I could do that with a lot of these because I think there's a lot of things in there which are not needed. Right, there we go. So I've managed my action a little there. I've managed to delete a few things. Now if I went back to button mode, we can see at the bottom of the list there's my action in orange as I specified earlier. I'm just going to load up another image. Yeah, a picture of my house, or at least how it used to be before I did lots of work to the garden. I'm going to apply those same procedures to this image, and before we do so, let's just get an idea of what we're dealing with. Image size, you can see it's 3264 pixels across, but if I click on my action for tutorial, dramatically different. Oops. Image size has now gone to 800. It's now very contrasty. That softening effect has been applied, and it was in the blink of an eye. Of course, if it was a huge image file and there were lots of procedures, it would take longer, but you can see how quick performing an action is. If I wanted to, I could perform this action on multiple files by going to File, Automate, and choosing Batch. And I could choose my action there, you see it's already selected, and I'd choose a source folder, and I'd choose a destination folder, and I click on OK, and it will go through each one of those files, applying that action as it does so. So this can save you a huge amount of time. Right, by now, of course, you've probably seen and understood the benefits of using actions. Please practice with actions and be as creative as possible, and don't worry, you're not going to break Photoshop, so just experiment and experiment and experiment. The great thing about actions is you can share them, you can save the actions that you've created. If I went to the default folder and save actions, I can save it into a particular folder, and I can put it on the internet, I can sell it, I can give it to friends, I can put it on tutorials. I could also download actions myself and load them up into the action palette, and they will appear in the list. So if I was just to choose one now, if I chose textures there, I went back to button mode, you can see already I've got loads of actions that have suddenly appeared, and I'll just click on one just by random. Quite an ugly action, but never mind. There we go. Thank you for watching, and please do visit the website shortviews.co.uk/learn for more tutorials on Photoshop and web design and development. Thank you.